In the name of one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. I don't know if you noticed on the way to church this morning, but the city is out taking down the wreaths that are lit that go up and down the streets. And I came in this morning while it was still dark. And as you came from the east and was coming towards the church, came up over the hill, and you could look down the main part of Franklin, and it was just full of lights. And then I saw the police lights flashing, and I wondered what was happening, and when I got up, I noticed that they were taking down the lights, which is really kind of funny in a church calendar way, because we are moving today and tomorrow from the season of Christmas into the season of light. In our church calendar, we are celebrating today the second Sunday after Christmas. And during the season of Advent, as we got ready for Christmas, and then throughout Christmas, we've been hearing from the different Gospels about Mary and Joseph and the shepherds, and now the wise men. And throughout Advent and Christmas, we watched as the Holy Family journeyed down our windows into the creche, followed by the shepherds who came after them, and now the wise men are perched on the ledge, and tomorrow they will go into the manger area. And today's lesson was actually scheduled to be the Gospel of John again. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that was the third time during this season that we've had that. And so I chose as an alternate reading the reading for Epiphany, which is actually happening tomorrow. But it's still part of the Christmas story, and yet it's a story all to itself. It kind of brings to a climax all the characters around the Christmas story who gather in the manger. But it also begins another story about those who have seen the Christ child and then go away, and what their life is like. Last night we were studying this in the Belmont group, and we talked about what people heard in the story as they listened to it. And there was a lot of focus and fascination on the light that shone in the night. How bright was this light? Where did it come from? And studies have indicated that, well, it could have been planets that align Jupiter and Saturn, along with possibly Mars, created a special lights in the sky. There's another theory that it could have been a supernova that occurred at a special time that produced a bright light for weeks or maybe months and then gradually faded away. There is another theory that it's possibly Halley's Comet, which is believed to have passed through about that time. And as we talked about the lights, we decided that the source of the light itself wasn't important. The fact that it was there is the important thing. And the fact that these wise men noticed the lights and for whatever reason decided to leave their home, to leave their family, to leave their country, and venture out to see what this light was all about. Now, I mentioned in our lesson last night, through my studies, I remembered that the wise men are not Jews. And that actually surprised a lot of people. They're Gentiles. They're coming from another country. And they're believed to be astrologers who were studying the night sky and noticed that something different was occurring, and so they left. But they didn't know the whole story. More than likely, some of the Jews who lived in their country probably told them of the Old Testament lessons that spoke that when the King of the Jews, the Messiah, the one who would liberate them, was coming into the world, he would have a special star. And so they set out to see for themselves and to, as Paul Harvey says, to learn the rest of the story. Now, the three kings themselves, we just sung the hymn. Tradition has that there's three kings and that they have names. I think the names are Melchior, Balthasar, and Caspar. And we have all this tradition around them, but did you know that the Gospels never say how many kings were there? We assume that there's three because there are three gifts that are offered. But Mark never tells us how many kings actually came to the manger. And speaking of the three gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, we've talked about that during the last couple of weeks. One of the sermons that I read said there was actually a fourth gift that we don't really pay any attention to at all, but it's actually the first gift that is given. Are you interested? Does that pique your curiosity? That when the star stopped and they came to Bethlehem and they saw Mary and Jesus in the manger, their first gift is that they prostrate themselves in front of Jesus and they worship Him. Their first gift is to worship. And I think Matthew was telling us something very important there. That it doesn't matter what we offer to God unless we first offer Him ourselves. Now let's go back to the other things that the people focused on last night, the star and the wise men. As we talked about the star, I asked the question, well, many times I'll ask, well, what did you hear in the story? I said, I'm not going to ask that question today. I said, I want to ask you, what is the star in your life that you're following? What is it that's leading you on a path, a spiritual journey to where you're going? And you know, there was a lot of thought about that, a lot of silence when I asked that question. And one man who's about 50 said, you know, the truth is, I don't know that I'm following any star. I get up in the morning and I go to work and I do my job and I come home and I eat dinner and I go to bed and I get up the next morning and I do it all over again. And I made comment over the fact that my generation, people who are in their late 50s and 60s, our generation was the last generation whose life was better than their parents. Our grandparents had a life that was better than their parents, and their children's life was better than their life, and our life was better than our parents, but our children's life, in most cases, are not better than ours, because the world has changed, the economy has changed. It's now taking 2.5 parents to make the living that we once made. And so there is a sense of losing purpose, of losing direction, of losing excitement about where you want to go and what you want to do. I once heard that, I think it's a bumper sticker or something that says, if you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? One of the things that we talked about is it's okay to get focused. Somebody said, you know, I'm really focused on trying to get ahead in my business to take care of my family. I'm doing the best I can to make money so that my family will have things in their lives. And I want to say that's okay. It's important that we work, and God has given us gifts to be successful at certain things and to make money and to care for our families. That's all good. But the question is, what is that life all about? Tony Campolo tells 2 stories about 2 of the students that he knew when he was teaching college. And he had gone on a mission trip to Africa. He was down there, and one of his students was with him. And they were taking care of the African children, and they were giving the children shots and taking care of their medical needs. And this one young man said, Dr. Campolo, he said, when I get back to the United States, I'm going to study medicine. And I'm going to become a doctor. And when I become a doctor, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to take care of these children. Tony ran into him several years later, and he said, to his credit, he did become a doctor. But he got into plastic surgery, and not the kind of plastic surgery that takes care of people who have been in accidents or malformed. That he had become involved in plastic surgery that caters to the needs and wants and desires of a very vain nation. And he was very successful. And when he met Tony, he said, Doc, I became a doctor. And Tony said, yeah, but what have you done with your life? He said, Charlie, you could have had it all. And what have you done with your life? He said, well, we still go to church. And my wife and I teach Sunday school. And we give a lot of money to the church. Tony said, Charlie, God gave you a gift, and what did you do with it? Tony goes on to talk about another young man who had come from Alabama, out of the sticks of nowhere, that he had struggled hard to be successful at the college that Tony was teaching in, and had been in the top of his class. He applied and got accepted into Harvard Law, and there he graduated the top of his class in Harvard Law. He went home to Alabama, and Tony ran into him several years later. And he asked him, he said, how are you doing? He said, well, Doc, he said, life is pretty good. He said, the people of Montgomery, well, they don't have a lot of people that will stand up and speak for them. And there's a lot of innocent people who go to jail, and people are just not being cared for. He said, but where I live, he said, those people have somebody who will be there with them, who will defend them, who will protect them. Tony said, well, what's your life like? He said, well, I live in a one-room studio above a pizza shop. And he said, sometimes my clients can't pay me, so they bring over food, and that's the way I get along. Tony said, this is a young black man who graduated the top in his class at Harvard Law. What kind of salary and position do you think he could have gotten? He could have named his own price. And what did he do with his life? He gave it away to other people. We talked about the light that led the wise men to the Christ child in the manger. And the last line is almost a throwaway if you're not paying attention in Matthew's Gospel today. And they decided that they weren't going to return to Herod, but they would go home to their own country by another road. I don't think Matthew is just telling us, this story that, okay, well, they decided rather than take Interstate 85, they were going to go up 77 over to 81 and back that way. I don't think that's what his purpose was. I think what he was telling us was, as they followed the light, as they followed the star, which led them to the Christ child, and they encountered the Christ child, their life was changed. And they went home different than they came. Their life was changed, and they would never go back the same way. The light fades into the darkness, and the wise men go away. But the Christ child remains. And he is a light that has come into the world, and the world was changed by him. He is the light that has come into the world, and the darkness will not overcome it. What star are you following? And will it change your life?